Good day to all of you. Thank you to see all of you today. You're all joining from different continents and different time zones. Thank you for spending time with us to learn. And also, our webinars won't be useful if you don't join. So, thank you for that. So, before we go to the topic with Rodney about the marketing tips that you're all anxious, we just want to give you a brief introduction. I won't take you a lot of time. I just want to tell you a little bit about Town. So we started the parent company Inno Concepts in 1992. Originally, we started trading innovative machines for the specialty food processing machines, and we were focusing on a very small market, like putting all the eggs in one basket kind of thing. We were focusing on South Indians in US and Canada, and the business was growing good. We didn't have any complaints. We had the distributors all over US to give the service, and we also had something called the grinder clinics where people can bring the machines and we go there and fix it for them, so they don't have to spend a lot of money shipping back and forth and things like that. But then when 2007 came, we had warehouse full of machines, but no sales. So we had to pivot. So we were looking at what can we do because we need to stay on business. We have to make sure our employees are getting paid. So we looked at it. Over the years, we have been collecting the information on where the machines are used when non-Indians buy, because from the name you can figure out where the Indians are not. And then we found out a few people, like a handful of people, were using these machines to make chocolate, and that got us interested in saying, how do they use it for chocolate? And then we asked them, and they said, this machine, the idli dosa grinding machine, wet grinder we call it, it works for 20 minutes a batch, two batches a day, and then we do two or three batches or even one batch a week, something like that. But the chocolate makers were using these machines to make chocolate uh, 3 to 5 days continuously, but they had to tinker it a lot. And I don't know, a lot of people are from other countries, but in US, there used to be a show in 1990s called the MacGyver show, where the MacGyver, he takes something and he repurposes it to accomplish his objective. So the same way, these people were taking a wet grinder and modifying it to make it into a chocolate grinder. That's when we came in and said, okay, we will help you with the machine part, so you can be the artist and you can focus your energy on creating the chocolate and flavors and everything. And also, from the beginning, our objective was sustainability in three different areas: the environment, the customer's business, and the agriculture. The customer's business, because we know the importance. The customers, they have to be successful. It's not just we are here to make money. We have to let our customers also make the money so that everybody get the benefit. And also the environment, we make the machines with high quality stainless steel, and the machines we sold in 2005 2006, people are still using it. And then the agriculture, we found out when the people make bean to bar chocolate, most of them, they have direct relationship with the farmers, or they buy the beans from the people they trust who have the direct interaction with the farmers. So it's ethically sourced, and the farmers are compensated more than the market price, whatever the commodity price. So the agricultural also becomes sustainable for the next generation. Otherwise, the next generation wants to go to the city to earn money, but if the farmer doesn't put his foot on the ground or in the mud, we cannot put our hand in our food. So we need to make sure the agriculture, the farmers, any farmer, it doesn't matter just the cocoa or any product, the farmers are very important for this earth. So we came up with the name Cocoa Town in 2009 to differentiate our wet grinder business with the chocolate grinder, because there is a lot of confusion with the wet grinder, and because they look similar. But like I said, one had does for 20 minutes, the other works for 24/7, 365 days for years. And then, as help of these machines and the chocolate makers, they made the cocoa as a superfood, and also customers, consumers got the healthy chocolate instead of the junk food. So this is a small slide over the years how we know, even though we formed the company in 92, We started selling only 94 because we wanted to be innovative, not me too company. So it took some time to research and find what fits our needs. And then you can see over the years how we've grown. And then in 2020, again, we had to change our gears. And we found out, all over the world, there was lockdown, and you heard any radio, TV, it's all only gloomy news. But we had to give hope to our customers, and also the downtime, they can use it to learn some new skills. So we asked the industry experts that we are in contact, and they were all very gracefully donated their time free of cost. They, created a lot of webinars, and people all over the world joined, and then they learned. So the Empowering Chocopreneurs webinar series, we call it. So that's where today we are going to talk about, Rodney is going to teach us about marketing. And then now we say we are not the business of selling machines. We are in the business of creating chocopreneurs and empowering them with education, equipment, evaluation tools, and also exposure in the world market. That's why whenever we have the webinar, we encourage our customers to put your contact information, put your company, and try to network with each other, create a community. There is always strength in numbers. And then we are looking forward to return to the normal life, where we can also start doing in-person meetings. The first meeting we have done in US was the DC Chocolate Festival last week. It was nice to see the chocolate community after 2 year hiatus. So we look forward to have more meetings and travel to more countries and meet you all in person. In the meantime, we will continue the webinar. And I want to now conclude with Lokha Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. It means may all beings everywhere in the world or in the universe be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and to that freedom for all. Thank you all. And I will turn over to Teresa.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Balu. As always, we're going to do just a short little chat with Rodney before I turn it over with him. And usually I ask, well, I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask Rodney, can you tell us a little bit about where your relationship with chocolate started? Or do you have, I know the answer that you do have a relationship with chocolate, but can you tell us about your relationship with chocolate before we start?
Sure. So I've started to share the presentation because I prepared a couple slides with this question in mind. So do you see that?
Yes, sir, we see it.
Okay. For 20 years, I was at Equal Exchange, which is still up and running, a very successful importer, wholesaler, coffee roaster, but they handle coffee, cocoa, chocolate, bananas, olive oil, you name it. And at Equal Exchange, we began to import organic fair trade cocoa around 2002. And it was only 2 years later that we began our first import of organic fair trade chocolate. And one of the producer groups for that is a cooperative of small scale organic farmers in the Rio Upper Rimac Valley in Peru. And I was lucky enough to be sent with some of my colleagues. We were actually down in Peru for 10 days. And that was a very powerful experience. So that's me there on the right with one of the great farmers of Cacao. So it says there, the Cooperativa Agraria Cafetalera Valle del Rio Upper Rimac. So the cooperative grew both coffee and cacao, and our purchase from them was the first time they'd ever exported cacao outside of Peru. Before that, they were just selling small amounts internally. And they are still supplying Equal Exchange now, almost 20 years later. Subsequently, I also spent a week visiting with organic cacao farmers in the Dominican Republic. So I was there when Equal Exchange started their chocolate imports, and now 20 years later, they have imported over that time 15,000 metric tons of organic cocoa and sugar. And that's been turned into 6 million cans of cocoa and over 43 million chocolate bars. So for roughly 11 of those years, I was at Equal Exchange. And so I got to watch a lot of that success, met many cocoa farmers, but also others who were involved in the supply chain, from the farm to the grocery store or the restaurant, what have you. So it was a great experience.
So with that, I will turn the presentation over to you, and I look forward to gobbling up all the goodies that you're gonna share with us. I'm ready with my notepad and pen because I can always learn something new about marketing.
One last thing I got to say about that visit to Peru. So I've traveled a lot, and that valley, the Rio Upper Rimac, is one of the most beautiful places in the world I've ever seen. It's hard to get to, but anyway, so I've always been grateful to those farmers who hosted us for that trip. About today's conversation, it'd be easy to think that this would be a how-to session. A lot of you are going to want to obviously, many of you are already marketing your products and you'd like to know more about how to do it. And in fact, this is not that, not to do a bait and switch, but rather almost everybody's going to have a slightly different set of circumstances, maybe different products that they're selling or anticipating selling. They're in different situations. Maybe they want to export, maybe not. They may have different export markets in mind. And people have different resources. Some have more money, other people have more social capital. For example, maybe people in the hospitality industry, or people in manufacturing who are looking for ingredients. And so a how-to presentation, I don't think is the most helpful thing at this stage. Also, we anticipate that a lot of the audience have small-scale businesses, so there's a potential for growth. And as you grow, things change. What maybe you should be doing or looking for in marketing, that's going to change. And so instead of a how-to list, what I have in mind is to give people ideas about how to think about their marketing. And I like to stress that this is a way to think about it, one of many. I feel confident saying that marketing is more an art than a science. There's not one way to do it. And this is especially true at a very small scale, when you may not have the resources, for example, to buy off-the-shelf data like market research, which can cost thousands of dollars, or you don't have the resources for extensive experimentation or for data collection or for analysis. But I think what we're going to cover in the next hour, and then beyond that with our conversation, can help you think about what you might do with your marketing and how to fit it into the bigger picture of your business. So what is marketing? It is everything that influences how people perceive your brand and your products. This includes both the amount of awareness, which is often what people think of first, but also it's the character and the quality of that awareness. One opportunity for small businesses is that you may not reach many people, but they could be very, very, very fond of you. They may feel more strongly about a small brand that they like or love than they do about a ubiquitous big brand that they see everywhere they turn. So marketing, and one reason I phrase it this way about how everything influences how people perceive your brand is it goes much beyond what some people think of when they think of marketing. And I'll get to that later. Oh, so something I get a lot, especially when I'm talking shop with other people in the business, is, well, wait a minute, I thought that was a sales activity. And so, where does marketing start and where does it stop? I don't think there's a firm answer, and I don't think it really matters. There's a lot of overlap. For some people, say if they're in sales, they may have a more expansive idea of what is sales. And the people in marketing, they tend to have an expansive idea of what marketing. There's historically always been some tension between sales teams and marketing teams about who is the lead, who is serving whom, and I don't want to get into that. I don't really have a strong opinion about it, except to acknowledge that there's no clear line. Like when you get into trade shows, is that a sales activity? The point is that there's an overlap. Don't be surprised by that. And also for the very small scale businesses, you might be the founder, the sales director, the marketing director, and the chief bottle washer, everything in between. So maybe that distinction doesn't matter so much. But as you grow, at some point you may need to draw a line between those. And there's no one right answer about where you draw that line. But I do encourage people, if you do, just be clear about where responsibilities lie so that there aren't turf battles or confusion about like, oh, I thought you were going to do that. So many of you will be familiar with this. You have heard about it. If you took an introductory course in business in college or picked up a textbook, you'll hear about the 4 P's of marketing. I'm going to start here, and we're going to elaborate on some of them later. One thing I like about the 4 P's is even if it's maybe overly simplistic, it's memorable, and that's a virtue unto itself. So the first is product, and I like to encourage people to think about like the different forms, like what product can mean. So it's not just I make chocolate or I make chocolate bars, but the product is the size, it's the shape. So at Equal Exchange, one thing we did, it was actually, I think, it was a marketing idea actually, which was to create samples, little bite-sized, individually wrapped bars that we could give away. We were selling a premium product, pretty close to the high end of the market, and people would hesitate to buy, to put out that much money for something they never tried. But we could go to events and give away little bite-sized pieces. Those were so popular, we realized we could sell them. So just changing the size was changing the product in essence. Shape. So I'm a fan of Tony Chocolonely. However, their bars are pretty thick in a way that I don't find appealing. So even something like the thickness is changing. For me, that distinguishes that bar from other chocolates of equal quality. The form, again with Tony Chocolonely, they made a point of putting the breaks in their bars in a kind of a chaotic way, really to convey sort of like the fun aspect of their brand. So the form, and also, selling cocoa, like we at Equal Exchange offered what we called a European style hot chocolate drink, as distinct from hot cocoa. And it was a higher price, and it was a qualitative. It was like distinctly a different product from our hot cocoa mix. Didn't sell well enough, but that was an experiment in tweaking the product. Also, the intangible things are a part of your product. If you're a small scale producer, like at Equal Exchange, we bought all of our ingredients from farmer cooperatives. So that sourcing decision sort of is embedding an aspect into the product itself. So your backstory, where you source from, sustainability initiatives, is it a veteran-owned business, et cetera. These are sort of aspects that are part of the product. Next one is price. And I encourage people to think about this in the broadest possible sense. So price includes all the pricing options. And includes the price point as opposed to the unit price, or say the price per 100 grams. One thing that some of you will know the brand Dagobah, which at one point was bought up by Hershey's. I don't see it in the stores anymore, but high-end organic, one of the earlier organic chocolate brands in the United States. And I liked that they offered this little bar. Their main product was a bigger bar of, I think, 4 ounces, but they had like these little 1.5 ounce or 2 ounce bars. And I like that it lowered like the risk. Like if I wanted to try a new flavor, I might only spend a couple dollars, you know, whatever, it was a lower price point. And so by changing the size or changing the price point, which sort of changed the risk analysis of the consumer who's thinking about buying something for the first time. Also, about prices, do you put your products on sale? Some people have very strong opinions about, oh, well, yes, I definitely do that. I want to drive trials. You know, people will try the product when it's on sale. Other people feel that, oh, wait a minute, customers are now just going to wait for the product to come on sale, and I'm just lowering my margins. So some people never put their products on sale. Like at Trader Joe's, part of their pricing strategy is they never have sales. Also, are you intentionally using your pricing as a way to send a signal? You know, by choosing, you know, to have a higher price point or price per weight, you could be trying to reinforce the idea of quality because you're charging a price that's commensurate with high quality. Do you offer bulk pricing? Do you barter? So, for example, you'll see, like in some farm-to-table restaurants, they'll make a point of naming the suppliers for the coffee or the beef or the eggs, what have you. And some of those suppliers may offer a small discount for that mention on a menu. So these are many of the ways that price can work into your marketing. And there's more. And that, by the way, for everything that I say, there will be more. We can't cover every example or wrinkle of each topic we touch upon. So place. Where is your product being bought and sold? You know, the easy, well, you know, is it a discount store? Is it a high-end grocery store? Or so I lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts for a long time, and there's a smaller store, I think it was called Formaggio, and it just sold like very high-end, often imported products, and you knew you were going to be paying a higher price, whatever you found in that little store. They weren't trying to compete on price. You know, the store had a quality image, and so that got conveyed to everything on their shelves. And so I remember at Equal Exchange, sometimes we'd think about, would we want our products, like, might we turn a customer down because we didn't want our products in that place? This is a sort of a silly example, but you know, would you want your chocolate sold in a place that also sold motor oil or pet supplies? It can depend. But, and all, you know, it could be that place is not a public place. It could be you just sell an ingredient to, say, a cookie company that puts it into their cookies, or you're selling to food service, or you're selling to wholesalers, and you have no control over where your product ends up later on. But that's all a part of the marketing, is where your product is eventually reaching the end user. And then promotion. This is the part that most people think of when they think of marketing. And that's where we're going to spend a lot of our time today. So promotion leads us to the marketing toolkit. And again, these examples are not all of them, just some of the things that more people will think of. And I sprinkled in there some pieces that people may not think of as part of marketing. So I hope the folks at the Cross Atlantic Chocolate Collective don't mind, but I'm fond of their marketing. I have some of it here with me. By the way, I can't see myself right now, but I'm going to hold up an example of, this is some collateral. So printed material in their chocolate sampler box, which I think is lovely. And so the collateral includes photos and little bios of the producers who've made the different individual bars, including their the countries where they are. So that's an example of collateral. Also, the Cross-Atlantic Chocolate Collective is an example of partnerships. So partnerships could be like, remember I talked about we're working with a restaurant. That's a kind of a partnership. Working with a manufacturer. In this case, working with your peers. We did that sometimes at Equal Exchange. We did a collaboration with other organic coffee companies because we saw that the real competition was the rest of the market. It wasn't other organic roasters. It was all the non-organic roasters. It was the Starbucks and the Folgers. And so, you know, again, if you get creative, you could take one of these things. It could be networking or contests or what have you, and you know, really, and some of those things don't necessarily have to cost a lot of money. Oh, and also co-packing, whether somebody's co-packing for you or you're doing the co-packing, that's a kind of partnership. So some of these things we'll talk about later. And also, I bet a lot of you have your own examples that you'd like to share. You know, it could be like a partnership idea that you thought was great and it didn't work out, what have you, or interesting things you've done with PR or digital. And digital, by the way, I'm thinking it's your website, it's your social media efforts. It's some PR blends into digital. Like for example, the way, not just what you push out through social media, but also the way you interact. From a business perspective, I've had a lot of success, you know, starting conversations with folks on blogs or through social media, which then led to something fruitful. So it's not just one way push, like here's a message, we have a great product, go buy it. But it could be, oh, you know, I loved what you did. How did you do it? And you start a conversation, or you make a suggestion about, oh, have you thought about this? Or, oh, you know, we got this great little farm and it's only 10 minutes from the airport. You ought to come check us out. You know, that is a part, that kind of interaction on digital is just one example of something that you could do. And we could do hours on any one of these things, like advertising or your brand strategy. My bigger point here is that there's these many pieces to your marketing, but all of those still, even when you take them all together, are only part of your marketing strategy. There are your business goals, and I liked how Mrs. Ballou was telling the Cocoa Town story, and when you listen to her talk about their goals, you didn't see like, you know, drive revenue, maximize profits, rather goals like empowering small scale producers, the sustainability goals. So your business goals are also relevant, maybe this is obvious, to your marketing, and they're combined. So, you know, just this webinar alone, it's helping to advance Cocoa Town's bigger mission, you know, educating their customer base. And, you know, it's sort of independent of, say, a revenue goal. So for many of you, I think you're going to have sort of non-monetary goals, and marketing can be a big part of that. At Equal Exchange, we were really trying to promote the fair trade concept, organic farming, the cooperative business model. And so a lot of our marketing, like if I went to business school to talk about how we did what we did, that was kind of detached from sort of pure business objectives. And so likewise, your marketing likely can and will be advancing some non-business goals. So again, the marketing toolkit, you know, it's like I said, those are tools, but your strategy is also going to include, okay, what are specific marketing goals. It could be about a certain amount of exposure, trying to reach certain audiences, trying to convert sort of the general public into leads and then converting them into customers and so on. What are your resources? You know, what you do is obviously going to be driven by what you have to work with. And this isn't just, you know, so many dollars or euros or what have you in the bank. It could be social capital as a kind of a resource. The connections that you have, your story is an asset, and so on, or location. Are you near a resort community, or are you in a particularly beautiful part of the world? These can be resources. What are your opportunities? And as I was saying at the very beginning, that could change a lot. I mean, it'll vary a lot among the audience, but also they can change over time. Your strategy will need to, you need to select your audience and get to know your audience. And it could be more than one. At Equal Exchange, for our own reasons, we were basically looking for ethical buyers. And that could be at the wholesale level, it could be food service, it could be the general public. And because this goes back to the 80s and 90s, we found them everywhere. So consequently, we were looking for those kinds of people in food service, in the grocery trade, in independent cafes, even in places of worship. And we'd have to get to know each of those audiences. How big should your marketing investment be? That's a part of the overall equation, and it can change over time. And this sizing your market, as a marketer, I'm not going to say, oh, just spend more money on marketing. That's always the right decision. It isn't. There can be such a thing as spending too much and also spending too little, but it should be part of a long-term strategy. When you're very small and trying to get your name out there, you might spend more. And then if you think like you've established an audience, you might back off on your spending just enough to maintain awareness of your brand. Something we're going to get in later is your customer journey. Basically, in the very short version of this, there's people who don't know you at all, but you want them to know you. And then they go all the way through. And now we're going to later talk about the customer funnel. But so they go from not knowing you at all to having some awareness. And then maybe they actually know you, like, okay, they've seen you around a few times. They finally try your product. They try it, they like it. They become a repeat customer. And this could be whether they're a wholesale customer or like an end user consumer. And that journey can go all the way to where they love your product, they love what you do, they love your story, and they become a brand ambassador. And so you want to be thinking about how these people sort of go through that journey and how you can help them along. So when you think about there on the left, your marketing toolkit, which ones do you use in what sequence? And how much you do this or that can change over time, but the sequencing is another piece of the puzzle. Quality. So obviously, great consistent product quality always helps, but regardless, your marketing should be consistent with the level of your product and service quality. And it can be okay. It's like, I make pretty good chocolate. I don't make the world's best, but it's pretty good. Can you sort of pair your marketing with that? Okay, you wouldn't want your marketing to overclaim what you're delivering. You wouldn't want your price to be inconsistent with what you're actually delivering. You know, the very biggest brands, obviously, a lot of them produce, it's okay. It's very consistent. The prices are low. So, you know, there is a path to success, sometimes even with a lower quality, a lower price. Of course, that could be hard with very small volumes. But the point is that whatever quality you can regularly produce, that is going to be a part of kind of thinking about your marketing. Value, and value is not the same as price. And I think this is fairly intuitive. It's just like, what are people getting for what they're paying? So it's a different sort of part of the equation from just like what's your price point, or how does your product compare? And by the way, stuff like your story fits into values. Like if they're excited by what you represent, like, you know, let's say I'm in Trinidad and I really want to support local Trinidadian growers, I will find some value in buying that, even if I'm paying a little more than I otherwise would. Oh, yeah. So I like to give a shout out to this book, and let me see if I can. No, I can't see myself. That's not gonna happen. Called Pete, and it's I think one of the better just business books. It's called How Great Companies Get Their Mojo from Maslow, as in a leader in psychology. But so one of the things that this gentleman, Chip Conley, talks about is runs boutique hotels, and he seems to be a great employer. But one of the consequences of being a great employer is everybody, down to the people who make the beds or are at the front desk or pick up the phones, they're enthusiastic about their hotel. And that comes through, like when they run into people in the hallway, or when a customer comes in to the lobby late at night. The employees' enthusiasm and pride comes through, which really rebounds to the benefit of the companies. One of the things I like is to think about when it comes to touch points. Do you answer your phone? Some companies just, they never answer the phone. But some of the, obviously the bigger ones are notorious about this, right? It's a voicemail tree. You never get a live person, and it reinforces the idea of kind of like a big faceless company. And conversely, it's so reassuring when you call a small business, a real person answers the phone, and regardless of their rank. And that if they don't have the answer, they're going to go find the answer. It convey that little thing. That's part of your marketing. Like, do you answer the phone? How do you answer it? Is it professional, courteous? Does the person on the phone, are they really trying to help? And so, what's the music you play if people are on hold? All these little things have an influence upon how people perceive you. I think about trucks that I see in my neighborhood. Like, are they clean? These are trucks from different companies in the area. And if that business, like Sheetz, it's a chain of gas stations here in the United States, their trucks are always clean. It says something about them. So touchpoint goes beyond just what you see in the marketing toolkit. Little things like that also influence how people see you. And I mentioned before, even all this doesn't cover everything. But your marketing strategy will balance these different things like resources, goals, your opportunities, your quality, weaving it all together into something coherent. And you can have a marketing strategy even if you have little or no money. You have these different pieces. You have a story, you have a product, you have goals, you have some opportunities. And your marketing strategy is just trying to make the most, to try and match those resources to your goals, using what tools you have available, matching it to your opportunities, and kind of thinking it through over time, how to get you, maybe not all the way there because you're probably shooting high, but to get you further along. And then periodically you will reevaluate this bundle of factors and reevaluate your marketing strategy, especially if you have some success. And it may not be where you expected it, by the way. Even successful companies don't always grow the way they plan to. Like, we had some at Equal Exchange, we had some very pleasant surprises, which forced us to shift our product mix, our pricing strategies, and our marketing strategies. So yeah, marketing strategy brings all those things together. So about some just our basic concepts. I'm a real believer in that part of marketing is getting mental traction with your audience, whomever that is. And again, it could be a handful of importers, it could be wholesalers, it could be restaurateurs, it could be the general public, but whoever the audience is, that when it comes to getting mental traction, I believe in, and this is something that I heard long ago and it always made sense to me, is the importance of repeat exposures. And at the time I'd heard, and again, this still feels true to me, that people need to like encounter your brand at least 3 times before it's going to stick. You know, if they simply see, say, an ad, like one ad in one magazine one time, I mean, we see tens of thousands of probably forms of marketing and advertising every month. So you need some repetition before it's going to stick. And it can help. Oh, by the way, with that in mind, especially if you have limited resources, I encourage like better to reach the same person 10 times to be sure that you're on their radar versus reaching 10 people one time. And when I was a marketing director, I always was trying to keep this in mind. Okay, are we hitting a lot of people once or the same ones over and over, especially over time? And this also come out, it's not just say with social media or advertising, stuff like trade shows. You know, I would rather go to the same show 3-4 times in a row. So people, it's like, oh, you were here last year. Oh, and you were here the year before that. It's like, okay, you're for real, you keep showing up. As opposed to going to 3 totally different shows in different areas and everybody sees you once and then you're gone. And that kind of reinforces that, oh, they weren't serious, you know, or that they don't exist anymore. I saw them in San Francisco last year and now they're gone. So something to keep in mind. And I think it can make sense to have different types of exposure. So it's not just, oh, I saw 10 tweets, but I was in a store and I had a sample. And then maybe later I saw an ad or I saw them at a trade show. And then, oh, I saw them on a shelf. Maybe I didn't buy it, but I saw them. You know, all of these sort of that diversity of exposures, I think is even better than just 3 of the same. Some of it you can't control, but you probably can control to an extent, like the geographic range of your marketing efforts. So if it's all in one town, there's a better chance of reaching the same people multiple times and reaching them in different ways. And some of it you can do very proactively, like, okay, we're on the store shelf. Now we're going to get in the store and do some sampling, or we're going to do a sale with the store, so they put us in the flyer, or we're going to do some fun event with the restaurant. So not only are we on the menu, we're actually going to like be in the restaurant doing something using our ingredients. So repeat exposures, sort of deeper is better than broader, you know, sort of narrow and deep is better than broad and thin, and then a variety of exposures. Oh, so when thinking about, like, you're looking at your toolkit and you're looking at your bigger marketing strategy, like, how do I think through all the different things that I might do? And I found that, so my main effort at Equal Exchange was with public relations, which was everything from media relations to other kinds of public relations. So public speaking, speaking at trade shows, visiting business colleges, interacting with people online, blogs, social media. And I found myself using it's kind of intuitive, but I turned it into a formula for how should I spend my time? And I think it's also applicable to other kinds of marketing efforts, not just PR. So to give you an example, so here are so two different kinds of publicity that I secured, and there's like a different calculus for each. So we got onto the cover of a trade publication, specialty coffee retailer. And so this is read by the owner, managers, employees of independent coffee shops, which was a major market segment for us. So there we are, right on the cover. You know, it's a right audience. It's great coverage. It's not a big audience, by the way. It's a small audience, but a critical one. The quality of the exposure is high. There's good branding. So this is an example of how the article looked. They get our logo. That was always important for us, was to get our logo in any kind of print exposure. A different kind of publicity we got was there was a new magazine called Conscious Company, focused on the people interested in or running ethical and environmentally responsible businesses. So it's a broader audience, but they shared our values at Equal Exchange. So it wasn't as specific as, say, specialty coffee retailer, but it was the right kind of general audience. One of the benefits here, so we didn't get on the cover, but because it was a new magazine at the time, they let me write the article. And they just visually could not have done more in terms of they showed all of our different products. There's a picture of the chocolate on the lower right-hand corner. So I think, is it 4? Yeah, so 4 full pages, color, showing the products. They're saying exactly what we wanted them to say as we would want them to say it, because I wrote it. So, you know, and because it was a new magazine, it had a small circulation, but the quality of those impressions for those few readers was, you know, we couldn't have been better. So those are 2 examples, and this formula will help. Again, it's a formula. You might use a different one. And this is also kind of, this works for me. You might come up with your own. And some of you might be doing something like this subconsciously. So a factor is the cost of the effort. Like trade shows, they can be super expensive, but you could land big wholesale customers. So, I mean, some things, a tweet is essentially free, but it does cost time. And there's other resources besides just time and money. But so cost is a variable, times how likely is it to succeed. So sometimes people ask like, hey, could you get us on the Oprah show? You know, getting on the big national TV shows is extremely hard. So you might do it, you might put a lot of money and time into that and never see something. Whereas a small magazine writes to you and they say, hey, do you want to be in here? I already know that the chance of success is 100% because they came to me. And other opportunities are going to fall somewhere in between. So what is the chance of the effort working? The number of exposures. So like I once got us into the New York Times, but it took 7 years. So New York Times, bigger exposure. So the size of the exposure isn't the only variable, but it's a variable. What's the quality of the exposure? So again, there's these 2 magazines that I've mentioned had very high quality. It was a smaller audience, but that's a part of the variable. I have a request. Can we make the slide a little larger? I'm afraid not, because I'm going to run out of space. You'll see in a second. And you'll be able to look at this later as well. There's the variety of exposures that your marketing effort leads to. That kind of gets to what we were talking about before with, like if people are only seeing you on social media, that's not quite as good if they saw you on social media and they actually got to sample your product, or they saw you on social media and they saw you on a store shelf. Um, I'm sorry, Ms. Baloo, I'm not sure about where the viewing option
For the
is.
people,
Okay.
that's for the people who are watching.
Oh, okay, it's for them. All right.
That's, at the top of the Zoom, there will be a small window with a big rectangle and small three dots with the view. And if you press on it, if you put standard view, or there's a button on the side, they can make your face smaller and the slide bigger. So that's the answer for the previous question. Sorry.
Okay, no, I'm sure that'll be helpful for folks. Another variable are the opportunities to sample and purchase. This is going to come up again in a future slide, but so this, it's one thing to be, okay, you get your brand in front of somebody. This has to do with, but can they act on it? Like if you're on a store shelf, they can act, like they can buy it. They can't buy the tweet. So this is another variable in your efforts. What's the quality, I say, of the buyer's experience? And like it gets back to what I was saying from the book Peak. And that is, so they have an interaction with you, say, you're sampling in a store. Have you just hired somebody, and this is what they do, they sample products, but they're not connected to you, they don't know your story, they're not excited about you and your chocolate. That experience, that sampling experience, isn't the same as if you or your sibling or one of your own employees is there in the store, really, actually cares about it. So what's the buyer's experience? The number of positive experiences is another variable. Well, I think that's self-evident. All of those things together can give an approximation of the potential value of that effort, whatever it be, whether it's an advertising campaign, or it's a trade show, or it's a social media effort, if it's a contest. And that it's going to vary. Some are going to create a big audience and it may be cheap, but there may be a small chance of success. The quality of the exposure may not be great. So different efforts will be strong in different areas, but and then some efforts are going to check a lot of these boxes. It'll be cost effective, it'll be broad. You have reason to believe it'll be a quality experience for the person receiving the marketing effort. So you don't want to go off of just one of these, like, well, it's cheap. But if it doesn't do these other things, maybe it doesn't actually deliver a value. Excuse me. So many people in sales or marketing talk about the funnel. And it's like I was saying before, just it's phrased a little differently about it. You have like the general public doesn't know you at all. Can you make them aware? From those who are aware, can you actually get them to consider your product? They haven't actually bought anything yet, but they're thinking about that. I mean, I've seen myself do this in stores where, okay, I've seen this product for a while. It's around, other people are buying it. It seems similar to a product that I already buy. And eventually something may happen to push me, nudge me to actually make that first purchase. And then after I have, can I be converted into a regular customer? And on it goes to the point where You know, the ideal is when you have somebody who they're not just buying it, they're not just buying it consistently, but they really love you and your story. They buy your products as gifts for others. They talk it up. One reason we we started to create these little bite-sized chocolates, individually wrapped chocolates. It wasn't just so we could sample. We realized we had brand ambassadors who, for example, would buy a box, maybe it'd be $50, filled with these individually wrapped bite-sized chocolates, and they would give them out. So I have a friend who, an advocate within the cooperative business community, and I would give him these boxes. Sometimes he would buy them, but usually I'd give him boxes, and he would go to co-op trade shows and just give these away because he was so excited about what we were doing and about our own co-op story. Or people would buy these little boxes and bring it to their church or synagogue and give them away because they were trying to get their fellow parishioners to try our product. So, you know, it's great if you can get and serve those kinds of advocates. So you're a marketing and sales funnel. And especially as you get bigger and you have the resources for CRM tools, you know, customer relationship management, where, especially for wholesale customers, where you can track this. You know, they've contacted you once, you've had a second conversation, you know, you sent them samples, they made a small order. And so they're working their way through that funnel, and you want to be able to keep track of them and keep nudging them along. You don't want to forget about them. But for the very small scale producers, you may not have the means to have like CRM software like Salesforce, but you can try to approximate that same thing. You don't want to lose track of folks as they're going through this journey, what we earlier called the customer journey. So getting closer to the end, and I wanted to be sure to leave you all with some best practices before we get into question and answer, but also really hoping that some of you who are in the thick of it, like you're trying to make this happen every day, we want to give you some chances to share what you've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, or maybe you tried something and you don't know why it turned out the way it did, and you want to ask about that. But first, some best practices. By the way, I think this is going to come up soon. Yeah. So I got a book I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And this is probably true for entrepreneurs in general, is that, you know, we can be so wrapped up into our business, it's our baby. And when something doesn't work, that can be hard. But with marketing, like I said, it can be more art than science. It's not like physics. It's much squishier than that. So you're going to try stuff. There are going to be mistakes. There are going to be failures, and you can't take it personally. And you have to be willing to try stuff, let it fail, be honest about it, try to figure out, okay, why did that not work, so that you can learn. And you have to be ready to not hide your mistakes. You know, you can tap the brains around you, friends, family, relatives, business partners, customers. Like you may go to a customer and say, okay, we tried this promotion, it didn't work. Why do you think it didn't work? So it's easier to collect that information, to collect like accurate information, if you don't take it too personally. Like I was just saying, seek out input. Again, as a small scale operator, you're not going to have mega dollars. You need free input. And you want to be sure people feel comfortable telling you, like, yeah, I don't really like that logo. I don't like the colors on your website. So seek that out, make people feel comfortable giving it to you. And even while there are things you can do that may take time but don't take money, establishing a brand is expensive. You know, proportionately, it's much more expensive in the beginning, especially because you have small revenues. It's like, that's a dilemma as a small scale producer. to get your brand out there is so expensive, but you have no money to do it with. So plan for that. And it could take investments for a while before it really delivers a return. So anyway, don't think you can do it on, if you can do it on the cheap, that's great, but don't count on that. I am a believer in the quality of the execution more than the quantity. So I would recommend like spend a little more on the logo, on the website, on your trade show presence, rather than cutting corners, even if it may mean reaching fewer people, but the impression you make is better when you do. And again, that's one of the things I liked about really every aspect of this sampler box was, I paid a premium for it. The quality matched my experience, but all the little things from the box this came in was a really nice cardboard box, as well as this colored box. And
Rodney, will you
yes,
hold it up a little higher?
yes,
I know you can't see yourself, but I'd love to give that a little more exposure, just a tiny bit higher.
sure.
Thank you.
And then things like this. So there are sample chocolate from around the world, and each wrapper has an icon of the flag of that nation. So this is Malawi. So little steps like that, which I'm sure that could have been done cheaper, but I think they erred in the right direction. So yeah, quality over quantity. Oh, but whoa, how'd that happen? Oh, I already started to say this, that regardless of your audience, whether it is, a handful of importers or it's wholesalers or it's the hospitality trade, that it can take years to establish your profile. There was an example I gave earlier of trade shows where, as one who go to trade shows, and sometimes like I'm just walking the floor, sometimes I was like working at a booth, that it matters. I mean, many of these people, they just do it year after year. And if you're there for a few years in a row, it shows, okay, they must have the resources to be here, and it shows that they're serious. That alone may get you more attention in year 2, 3, 4 than you did in that first year. But whatever your effort is, it doesn't have to be trade shows. It can take years for something to pay off and for you to get that traction. I worry about making changes to one's marketing too frequently. While, yeah, you want to be able to try stuff, experiment, switch, if it's not working, maybe you need to sort of cut bait, as they say. But to do a big social media campaign and then drop it, and then do sampling and then drop it, and then do trade shows and then drop it, and then spend money on, say, deep sales, or you're paying to get onto the shelf into a store or into a hotel, etc. That I feel that kind of frenetic bouncing around means you reach some people here, but then you disappeared, and then you reach other people, and then it disappeared. I think that, and again, it's a gut decision, but that too many changes can be a poor use of money. It might be better to stick with a few things. Oh, so this book is not about marketing per se. Do you see that? It's called The Lean Startup, a very popular business book by Eric, I think it's pronounced Ries, R-I-E-S. And he makes a very good case for looking for small, simple, inexpensive experiments that that produce measurable data. And the sooner you do it, the better. For him, the worst case scenario is you got this grand plan for launching your brand, and you've thought it through every which way, but it's all like secrets in a box, and then you're going to spring it out onto the world. But if it doesn't work, like there's no backup. You've already spent all your money and like you got something wrong. The name was wrong, the logo was wrong, the product mix was wrong, the pricing point was wrong. And so he makes a compelling case for as soon as possible, get out there with small little experiments. So like hypothetically, you're in 2 stores and the otherwise are similar neighborhoods, similar product mix, but in one store, all your packaging is blue, and in the other store, all of your packaging is orange. Yeah, you can get some idea of like, okay, which color gets better traction. You can also do this with online sales. It's called, one version of this is called A/B testing. You try A and B, whichever one works, it moves ahead. Then you do it again. Uh, just you do these pairs. It's very popular with sort of online advertising. But the point is that rather than waiting for this fully fleshed out launch, you do these little things. It could be with colors, it could be with price points, it could be with names, it could be with recipes. And we're only like, maybe there's only 100 people who try that new flavor, and you can find out, oh, like that didn't work. People don't like whatever it was. And so anyway, small, simple experiments. I personally feel that there's a beauty, efficacy, and efficiency in simplicity. And that can be in your visual design, so like not too cluttered. Same thing with, not by visual, it could be your website, it could be your packaging, it could be ads, it could be your trade show booth. But not only simplicity in like visual design, but also in planning. And so there is such a thing as a plan that is too elaborate, it's too complex, and that like a simple plan that's easy to understand, easier to execute, is more likely to be executed well. So yeah, not that I've always been able to do it, but I aspire to leaning towards simplicity. And don't spread yourself too thin, especially for many of you, like I was saying before, you have to do it all. You have to do the books, you have to do the recipes, you do the sourcing, you do the taxes, whatever. And so like with your marketing, you already have a lot on your plate. Don't spread yourself too thin. Also, even if like you have like a person who could just focus on marketing, you don't want to spread your company's resources too thin for the reasons I've given before. Oops. Oh, so that is the end of the best practices that I had to offer. And again, the goal wasn't a how-to session, but to give you some mental tools that might work for you, that might resonate for you, and how to think about marketing and how to put it into the bigger picture for your business. And again, I mean, I've listed a lot of variables, like how to calculate a potential value for your marketing efforts. Some of those are going to be a lot more relevant for you than others, but I hope that you can sort of pick and choose in here things that will help you think through and I can't say solve your marketing challenges, because it's like, again, it's art, it's not science. There's no, objective solution, but there are things that may work better than others. And I hope you're a little better prepared for that work. And so now I hope we can sort of open the floor, so to speak, get some more questions and get people's input.